Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. So for step 4 D today, we have, at the end of a couple of brand new mugs, we have a very much old mug. My all-black Help It's Again mug. I love this one, but I know that it is getting hard to rate because I have more than one Help It's Again mug. Inside of it, we have some throat comfort tea. No real reason again today. I was feeling kind of it doesn't taste like licorice, but it gives me the same sort of like sensation in my mouth of licorice, and I like licorice a lot, so I really like this one. Yeah, that's why. I don't know. It felt right today. Getting into what we were talking about, we're actually going to not jump straight into that. Instead, we're going to cover real quick the massive news that dropped now 2 days ago. I meant to actually talk about it yesterday, but honestly I forgot because I was shooting at like 11:30 p.m. DnDBeyond has been acquired by Wizards of the Coast for, I think it's $146 million cash, or $147 million cash. That's a big deal. So if you didn't already know, DnDBeyond, not associated with Wizards of the Coast in any way until now. Wizards has officially bought out DnDBeyond. They are bringing them on as their like personal digital tool set, which is, I mean, a pretty good move in terms of like Wizards choices, because DnDBeyond is the most comprehensive set of Dungeons & Dragons tools out there for 5th edition because of the ease of use of the entire platform. Now, I've seen a lot of people who are concerned about this acquisition because they think that it's going to become this like hyper microtransaction-y, like super subscription-based, etc., kind of thing. And I am instead going to plant my flag in the hopeful camp on the other side of the road, because I really want this to be a good thing. I want it to be okay. I want it to work out all right so badly, because I love D&D Beyond, and I don't want to have to stop using it, because it makes life so much easier for a lot of things that I do. I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours paging through books when I'm trying to prep. I do it anyway in like a normal day, but like I don't have to do that. So I am instead planting my flag on the hopeful set and saying that maybe this will mean that all of the hardback books that you get will come like wrapped, and then inside there will be a code for redemption on D&D Beyond for you to use, because that would be amazing. I honestly wouldn't even be mad about the fact that I have bought them on both platforms, or in both formats, for all of the books that exist already. I would just be happy to be able to do that moving forward. That would be the ideal thing for me. I would very much enjoy that. But only time will tell. We'll see. As of yet, they have not released any details about any changes. In fact, they are keeping on the same core team for D&D Beyond. So for now, at least, it's going to stay pretty much the same. But my wish list for this is that we get those codes finally. We get a full overhaul of the homebrew system, because it's clunky. It's clunky, and I understand why it's clunky, because you have to be able to integrate it with the code for the actual website itself, and there are not the majority of homebrew DMs are not like super technically proficient with like the exact nature of homebrew sometimes, because you're writing homebrew, and the point of it is to be able to be fun and broken if you want it to be. I rate all of my stuff as close to like print copy as I can, because it makes it standardized in my brain, and that way I can run with that. But most people will write it in the way that makes sense to them, and standardized print copy is not necessarily the norm. So I know that it is difficult for that to work, but the way they've got it laid out right now really kind of kills me. So an overhaul of that would be fantastic. And there are a lot of people speculating that they are going to add in a full VTT, which would be really cool, virtual tabletop. That would be really awesome if they did that, as long as they don't also then pull all of the support from other platforms. Like Roll20 has an integrated D&D Beyond setup. I wouldn't want to see them pull support from that in order to make their platform exclusive. I could see why that would be a quote-unquote smart business move, but at the same time, it would be a very quote-unquote dumb business move because so many people would then get upset and just stop using D&D Beyond instead. Because people don't like new things, they like to use the things they know how to use. Which, honestly, fair a lot of the time for something like this very specifically. So not a lot of the time for this very specifically. But, again, I'm hopeful. My wish list consists of getting codes and an overhaul of the homebrew system. I don't use VTTs all that much, but I do think it would be cool if they introduced one. And also, I'd like to see the combat systems get out of alpha at some point here, because they've been in alpha for like 2 years at this point. But that one is way, way low on my list. I really just want to be able to homebrew stuff and hand it to my players on D&D Beyond so that I don't have to mail them paper cards and they don't have to keep track of it on a piece of paper. Because honestly, I know that it kind of sucks to have to do that when everything else is built into the computer already. But anyway, that's the big news. That is the most complete update I have for you. They're keeping the same core team. They have been acquired by Wizards of the Coast. For now, nothing is changing, but we can expect to see some changes coming soon, probably. There's also the speculation that this does mean that D&D is going to be moving entirely online, which I think is not super logistically sensible. Like, I don't think that that's going to be something that they actually go towards, because it will alienate a massive portion of their customer base. And I know that personally, I would very much struggle if they did that, because I cannot read books online particularly well. I don't know what it is. It just, my brain does not like to accept the information off of a computer screen if it's supposed to be in a book, which is part of the reason that I do buy both of them, because I don't want to need to go and reference all of my books every time I want to prep something, but I also cannot read all of the material in like one big swoop if it is on a screen for some reason. So yeah, that's the news update. Hopefully that is of interest to you. Now, to what we were actually talking about, that was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. We are talking about Warforged today. This is obviously as requested by my patrons. If you guys are interested in being part of this decision-making process, go check out the link in the description to this video. Patrons get to suggest shows as well as vote on which of those suggestions they want to see. So, if you are interested in, like, you know, helping shape this show, let me know, because I want to hear from you. Link to that is in the description. I believe I said that already. But getting into Warforged and what they are, how they work, how you use them, that sort of thing. Warforged are interesting. They're an odd kind of duck in the D&D world, because I mean, the long and short of it is they're magic robots. Really, like that is kind of the long and short of it. In 5th edition specifically, lore. I don't know necessarily the lore surrounding the rest of it, or other editions, I guess, not the rest of it. In 5th edition lore, they were introduced in Eberron, Rising from the Last War. They were said to have been specifically constructed almost by accident. They were a scientific breakthrough in the process, I guess, of the Last War. They were created as soldiers, essentially. Like they were made to be things that fought. Obviously, that's why, you know, the sort of stock image is the Warforged with the cloak and the shield and the sword. Like that's what it is. They were built to do that, and then after the war, they retained this sentience and were, I believe it says, word for word, begrudgingly accepted as a new race, quote unquote. Thankfully, I'm pretty sure a lot of this is being rewritten in Monsters of the Multiverse, or I'm pretty sure a lot of it has been rewritten in Monsters of the Multiverse, because this is pre that rewrite, so it's just kind of, it's a little clunky, it's a little weirdly specific with the way that Eberron works, even though it was re-released so that it was not setting specific. But the way that Warforged work, according to the book at least, is that their personalities are built to sort of be more of like soldier types, as they were constructed with that sort of in mind originally, according to at least the Eberron layout of it. They show little emotion. They embrace a very much concrete purpose. Essentially, they are robots. They have no real interest in religion, but will embrace faith and mysticism on a case-by-case basis. They tend to ignore the concept of gender and have a sexless body shape because they are just robots. Now, the thing that I think is really cool about them, that a lot of people overlook, actually, most people just make them out of metal and stuff, is that in here they specifically talk a couple different times about them being made out of organic material as well, like wood and vines and that sort of thing. And I am really excited about that. I have, you know, on the long list of characters that I would like to play or something at some point, I have an artificer that is not good with metal, but he's incredible with wood. He makes everything that he does out of wood, and if you hand him metal, he looks at it like you have just handed him a like astrophysics math equation, and he just cannot understand it. So I really like the concept that they actually include wood as part of the like makeup material here, and of course a good healthy hefty dose of magic. They are interesting as like things because they are they're just weird. So they in this they are I am reading pretty much directly off of the Eberron page here, if that has not been made obvious so far. In here they have their ASIs as normal. Again, those are being sort of tossed out and moved on from. The age of a typical Warforged is between 2 and 30, but the maximum age capacity has not been found out yet because at this point, the last war, quote unquote, this event in Eberron history, is not that far out. They are immune to magical aging effects, though, so potentially they can just kind of live, and that's the end of it. They just live for however long they take to break down, more or less. They're medium. They have neutral alignment, base speed of walking speed of 30 feet. There we go. And then a couple, these sort of 3 pieces here. I really should have brought Monsters of the Multiverse in here so that I could read that one instead, because that is the updated one, even though it has not been sent to wide individual print yet. The way that they have these features, at least in this, make them really interesting to me. They have constructed resilience, which gives them advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and they have resistance to poison damage. They don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. They are immune to disease, and they don't need sleep, and magic can't put them to sleep. Now, you might be asking yourself, what do they have instead of sleep? That would be Sentry's Rest. When you take a long rest, you must spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state rather than sleeping. In this state, you appear inert, but it doesn't render you unconscious, and you can see and hear as normal, which means that if you have a Warforged in your party and they're using this set of rules, they can just sit and take watch all night and still get the benefits of a long rest, which is very, very useful and very, very interesting. Now, you would have to be playing Warforged with a decent perception skill in order for this to make a whole lot of sense for you to do, but that's also not nearly as difficult as you might think, because Wisdom is one of the stats that 5th edition kind of leans into a lot. And then we come to the third thing that I think is really cool, Integrated Protection. Your body has built-in defensive layers, which can be enhanced with armor. You gain a +1 bonus to armor class. The thing about this is that people try and fight me on all the time. I don't know why. This is a floating +1. That means this floating +1 is added to whatever armor you have on, no matter what it is. I don't care if you have a +1 suit of magical armor. This floating +1 is part of your body just existing. You have your +1 suit of armor plus the additional +1 from that thing. They are different independent effects. You cannot be put under the same effect more than once in 5th edition. So if you were to have a +1 like breastplate and a +1 like, I don't know, set of leggings or something like that, chain leggings, but they were to try and stack those things, those would not stack. However, this floating +1 bonus, it's essentially like how you can get the Shield of Faith spell put on you while you have armor class that is benefited from magic already. It just works, okay? Anyway, in addition, you can don only armor with which you have proficiency to don armor other than a shield, so you can just hold a shield. You must incorporate into your body over the course of 1 hour, during which you must remain in contact with the armor. To doff armor, you spend 1 hour removing it. You can rest while donning and doffing armor in this way. So there are normal like time constraints on putting on and taking off armor. I think it gets up to about 10 minutes as the longest. So this is very specific that you have to be like, you have to try to do this. But while you are alive, straight up, not conscious, alive, the armor incorporated in your body cannot be removed against your will, which means that if you are alive, people cannot take your armor off of you. Straight up, that's the end of the story there, which is really, really cool, and I really, really am a fan of that, because like, if you get captured, they can't take your armor unless they kill you to do it, which is saying something. Like, that is a step that the people would have to take in order for you to lose your armor class. And that is a big thing. I play Morons a lot, and we often lose our armor for bad reasons. I, for a long time in a game, had an armor class of 12 because I decided that he wouldn't have worn it to a party. And he wouldn't have, and he didn't. And then for the entire climax of that game, he just didn't have any armor on. Anyway, so that is all of the statistical stuff about Warforged in Eberron. Now, moving on to how to use them in your games. If you are interested in using them, first off, cool, good for you. You kind of have to be okay with there being magitech kind of stuff, quote-unquote magitech, in your world. That it's not really a high fantasy kind of thing, because these are, while they are magic, they are magical inventions, which means that there are people actively out there like looking to make this sort of thing. And so you have to have magitech in your world to a certain degree. It doesn't have to be like, ooh, I made elevators and cars and all this other crazy stuff, because like soldier feels like a pretty easy jump to get to, or like servant or something like that. So I wouldn't say you have to like go crazy, but you do have to be like cognizant of the fact that there has to be technological advancement happening within your game. In addition to that, if you want a really good example, actually, of Warforged, check out Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Just, I'm going to leave it at that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then go take a look. If you do know what I'm talking about, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, that's just that. The way that I have integrated Warforged in my game is that they are few and far between. However, that is for my world that exists as it is right now. I am planning on keeping this world and using it for a long time to come. So, every campaign is going to be set in increments after where we started, and there's going to be more and more stuff that has changed as you go through. So if my players stick with it and they stay in the same world, they are going to see the evolution of a lot of these things moving down the line, and potentially the impact of stuff that they have done, depending upon how they want to end up pushing the envelope, progress through those stories. Now, I would say there are a couple of different things to consider when you are putting Warforged into your games. The first one is, do you want Warforged in there, or do you want mechs in there? Because if you just want mechs, that's totally fine. You just make like robot guards or something like that that don't really think or feel or anything like that. If you want to put Warforged in there specifically, I am of the opinion that you really do kind of need to like make them an actual thinking like species on the face of your planet, because otherwise you just have like half people walking around, and that just feels bad to me for like storytelling purposes. You also have to think about how they originated, where they came from, and how they ended up like in this situation. So maybe it was that somebody invented one, and then some noble saw them and was like, I want 10 more of those, and so they made them 10 of those, and then those sort of escaped, and there was like this continued building process of them. You can maybe even try and figure out, and by try and figure out, I mean very easily justify Warforged creating themselves, like being able to construct themselves. Maybe to go so far as, this is a deep dig that I didn't even realize I had in my brain still, the movie Robots, where when they have a baby, they literally have parts delivered in a box to their house. There are a lot of options when you are trying to come up with a way to literally just fabricate individuals. And I think that that is one of the really cool things about Warforged. And I really like playing like artificer, like pushing advancement kind of games. And so I think they are a really, really cool addition to the game. And I highly recommend people at least take a look at them and think about how they would integrate them into their world, even if they don't end up doing it, because it could end up being really, really cool. That is everything I have to talk to you guys on that. Let's move on to shows that we have today and this weekend. Because it's the weekend, we got 3 days worth. First up, today, Friday, we have Mayhem D&D, Off the Rails, Oxventure, Just Roll With It, The Strings of Fate, Rolling with Difficulty, World of Low, The Crown DM, and Coming Together Naturally. I'm going to be on an episode of Coming Together Naturally soon, so if you're interested in that, check it out. Next up, on Saturday, we have Dice Funk and Strange Hungers, and then on Sunday, we have Super Idols, Roll for Your Life, Grinning Griffin, Dungeon Drunks, Library of Nightmares, The Chaos Brigade, Rise of the Forsaken, Chromatic Dice, The Strodcast, High Rollers, and Tabletop Notch. That last one is a new addition to the list because somebody suggested it to me, and I want to add more shows to this list still. So if you know of shows, suggest them to me. I will put them on this list and I will talk about them. But please go check those out. It's a long weekend. By long, I mean it is the weekend, which means that it's more than one day, and that makes it long to me apparently. Go check it out. You might have some time this weekend, you might not. If you do, let them know that I sent you, because I want it to happen. I want someone to reach out to me someday and be like, "What? I didn't know you existed. Thanks for sending someone to my show." Because I think that'll be really funny. Also, I just think it'll be cool. But that is everything that I have to talk to you guys about today. Thank you so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. Quite literally this show that happened today. Again, if you're interested in becoming a patron and you want to be able to create, suggest, shape, and vote on the way that this show goes, particularly on Fridays, let me know. Follow the link in the description of this to my Patreon. There is where you guys can contribute to all of that. With all that said, don't forget, everybody, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.